Ooh. Do you want to learn all about cooking fish? Are you scared of cooking fish? Are you worried about overcooking it, undercooking it? Do you know what to buy? Lordy mercy. Seafood can be so confusing for people. Freshwater fish, saltwater fish. Folks aren't certain what to do with it. Well, I have the answer for you today. I'd like to welcome you. This is Virginia Willis, and welcome to Cookbooks with Virginia. Every Friday at 11:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We've been on hiatus, but every Friday at 11:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, I have Cookbooks with Virginia. And on this show, I bring in cookbook authors, new books, older books, classic books, books I'm like, oh, wow, I've never seen that before, you name it. But this week, super excited, so excited. I've got Hank Shaw here, and he has just written this wonderful book, Hook, Line, and Supper, right? And so he's going to talk to us all about seafood. You may know Hank from Hunt, Gather, Cook. So let's bring Hank on and say hey, and thanks so much for y'all joining us today.
Hi.
Hey, Hank. How's it going?
It's going well here in the steamy, hot California, which is unusually hot right now.
I know, man. Y'all had some crazy, crazy weather happening, but I guess a lot of places have. So you said it was 105 there?
Yesterday. It'll hit it again today. So
yeah, it's not even that hot here in Georgia.
Yeah, but it's dry.
But that's always the thing that I always laugh about. It's like dry heat versus like humid heat. 105 is hot regardless, right?
Yes. Yeah. But 100 for us isn't so bad. 105, we start to whine.
Like tips it over. Yeah. We've already got some folks here. We've got Beverly here. So, hello, Beverly. Good to see you. And Miss Gail Skelton is here. Yay. Thanks for joining us. So Hank has written this wonderful book, Hook, Line, and Sinker. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So I've told people, y'all, if you go to my Instagram page and look for the cover of this book, you're going to follow me, you're going to follow Hank, and you're going to enter to win. So let's talk about it. We were kind of building up to this. For the folks that aren't as aware of you, let's just give us a little bit of background. Like, tell me a little bit about you.
Sure. Many, many years ago when I was a young guy, I was a restaurant cook. So I worked as a sous chef and a line cook many years ago. And then I became a newspaper reporter for almost 18 years.
Yeah.
And so I covered mostly politics during that period. And this is before politics was quite the way it is right now. So
it wasn't like rotten fish.
It was like 2-day-old fish instead of 6-day-old fish. And at the end of that, I kind of left because I really wanted to do something that was making me, a bit of mental health issue, but also as a question of just, a lot of you out there are going to be good at something that you don't necessarily love anymore. And that was, reporting was that for me. And so I started Hunter, Angler, Gardener, Cook, my website back in 2007. And wow, you and I first met, I believe, at an IACP conference in like 2009, sometime around that. So it's been a while.
Yeah.
And I've written 5 books. Hook, Line, and Supper is my 5th. Hunter, Angler, Gardener, Cook has won a James Beard Award. You can kind of see that in the background. Yay. And it's been cool. Like, I've been able to be a wild foods expert for the last 11 years now, full time.
Which is amazing. I mean, first of all, let's just give a shout out to you for getting to do what you love and love what you do. Right.
I'm lucky.
Right. That is a lot of people don't have that gift. They're not given that gift in life. So that's great. And you are the authority on hunting, especially, right? Like so many of I think you mentioned yesterday, like this is the first one with the hook, right? Like this is
this is the first book I've written that does not involve any gunfire at all.
There you go. There you go. Although I have heard of people shooting fish, like not literally shooting fish. I've heard of that.
Oh, so with a bow, sure, but
not with a shotgun.
It'd be kind of a dangerous game of skeet.
That would be, but you are like your Instagram feed is fantastic. All your social media is fantastic. So y'all, for those of you watching, I very much encourage you to follow along with Hank on his on his travels and his journeys and his explorations, because it's just always so cool what you're doing. So let's talk a little bit about hook, line, and supper. So
Sure.
what made you make that jump? Like, why is there no gunfire involved in this book?
So I've been fishing or gathering stuff from the seashore for longer than I can remember. There's pictures of me as a toddler digging clams in New England, and I grew up in Jersey, and going down the shore to fish for saltwater is kind of religion up there.
Yeah.
And so this is the thing that's the closest to me in terms of the pursuit, the outdoor gathering of wild food that I've been doing the longest in my life. And so that should have been my first book, right? But it wasn't. So it wasn't because of a couple things. One, I really wanted to have a comprehensive look at it. So now I've now fished in probably 45 states, more or less, about 5 Canadian provinces.
I can't stand it.
Yeah, Mexico. So I've fished everywhere, and I've eaten almost 500 species of fish and seafood over the years. I tallied it up to do this book. So yeah, it was kind of, so like, all right, I got the expertise. I've been doing this professionally. I've done it as an amateur for decades.
Right.
And then, but then it was very difficult to think about writing a fish book where it was as useful to someone in Atlanta as someone in Massachusetts or Alaska or Iowa. Right. So I basically broke down fish and seafood cookery in a different way. I wanted to look at broad structures, and I wanted to look at basic kind of bedrock techniques. Right. So the whole book is filled with kind of master recipes where, sure, it might say this is a recipe for X fish, but I kind of don't mean it. Like, I mean, this is just what I happen to use for that particular instance. And we ended up really, really enjoying the fact that it's almost universal. Like, there are very few cases, and I mentioned those in the head notes of a recipe, where what you have will not work for that particular recipe. So it's kind of fun where you can just plug and play.
No, that's true. So y'all, and for those of us that are much more experienced with seafood cookery and fish cookery, this is true. Like, so you go to whatever website, Food and Wine, whatever, you go to a website and it says, 4 grouper fillets. Right. And you go to the fishmonger and there are no grouper fillets, and you're like, oh, well, I can't make it. But you just may not can make it with grouper. But what instead you need is, as Hank knows, of course, is that you just need another fish that is similar to grouper in terms of flakiness, or in terms of texture, in terms of muscle density, all of that. So let's just tell people what you're talking about, Frank. So on this, you've got broiling and baking. So broiling and baking, poaching, searing, sauteing, frying, steaming. So it's really very technique driven. Like, you're telling people about the technique on how to cook the fish, and then the plug and play with the different species.
Exactly. And it's for example, I've got a recipe for smoking a lean fish. And then I've got recipes for smoking fatty fish. And I've got a couple different methods for each. I've got an entire chapter on fried fish because, I love fried fish probably more than the next guy. But the whole world does it.
It is so good, right? We were talking about health and stuff like that. But like, if you've got some good fried fish that's properly done, that is.
Major tip: have your oil hot. Don't be scared of 350 degree oil. If your oil's 350, it won't be that fatty. I mean, you can pick up a piece of fried fish and your hands won't get greasy if your oil's hot enough.
Correct. You're exactly correct. John Taylor did a book about that years ago about fried foods, and it was all about, and they did some measurements. Like, it's not only just like cook's intuition or what a chef is saying. It's like they literally took it in the lab, did the science, measured the oil, right? So you're exactly right. So let's talk about, you have a whole chapter on frying fish.
So one of the things that's fun about it is that the whole world does fried fish, and they do it in different ways. Yeah. So the book has a very global perspective, and all of my books do, because it's important to me to show people that, the whole world does X or Y. And, some of my previous books were based on ducks and geese, or venison, or upland birds like turkey and quail and pheasant. And so the whole world works with these foods. Right. And so anybody can learn from, some India or Africa or Mexico or Germany, or so. I mean, there's so many places that do really interesting things with fish and with all these other things that it's become kind of a theme in my books.
No, I think it's cool. So I'm going to interrupt you just for a second so I can show people the cover. Y'all, please go to my Instagram feed and check out for the cover of Hook, Line, and Supper. And if you follow me and you follow Hank, you're going to enter to win a copy. No, I love that. And I love your story about being a deckhand. And
Yep.
I agree. I love that party boat. A dear friend of mine, Cynthia Graubart, we go out when I visit her in Maine. We go out on one of those party boats. And it is cheap and cheerful, right? Yep. And it's like a 4-hour tour. And we always catch mackerel. And yeah, and I love it. And so same thing. But there's like a world of people, right? There's people that have never picked up a pole in their life. There's a person, it's just describe a little bit about that. I thought that was cool about all the different folks you got to meet when you're on a deckhand.
It was kind of even before I was a deckhand, I cut my eye teeth on head boats. Party boats is another name for them. And it's basically like everybody's going to ride the bus, right? And everybody gets on the bus, but the bus is taking you fishing. Yeah. And like you said, it's if you're cheerful and you want to talk to the people next to you, you will find people that you would never meet in another social circumstance next to you on the boat. And if you're like, hey, what are you doing with that fish? Because it might not be a fish that you're used to, or you consider it like, oh, we don't eat that fish. And you ask that person and you'll be like, oh yeah, well, we steam it or we make broth out of it or blah, blah, blah. And like, aha. So it's a really easy way to become a better fish cook and a better angler by just, interacting with people that you've never met before. And they're all there for the same purpose. And I love those things.
No, it's true. And also, eat with your mind open, right?
Mm-hmm. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, eat with your mind open. Yeah, no, that happened. I made me think. Not too long ago, I was on a pier in West Palm, and some Vietnamese Americans were fishing off the dock, and they were harvesting this particular crab that is referred to as a trash fish, or trash. It's not really.
Was it a calico?
Yeah, a calico, exactly. So, Floridians, it's too small. There's not enough meat, etc. But, in South America, Brazil, when I did a little research after, the calico is like super sweet and delicious. And the reason that they're considered more trash, as I'm sure you know, is they're small. They're not like as big as a blue crab. So it's a little bit more work.
Yep.
Right. But you learn. And so that's super cool. So you do. So y'all, this recipe, the recipes in Hook, Line, and Sinker, as Hank is insinuating, they're very multicultural, right? So let's talk a little bit about that, like some of the, because if people are scared a little bit about cooking seafood, or what about, really like another recipe from another country. So how do you help people get through that?
So I spend a lot of time researching kind of how the recipe should be. And then some of it's from travel, some of it's from friends, some of it's from just plain old research. A lot of it's from eating, so this is how it's supposed to be. And so I will, to the best of my ability, recreate that recipe the way it's supposed to be with the equipment and the ingredients. And then I will say, okay, if you can't find X or Y ingredient at an Asian market or a Latin market, then you should, these are what you can find at Publix or what you can find at any supermarket that you normally go to. And I'll step it back so that it's accessible to everybody. Right. And I also will tell you, in this case, X thing is super important to the recipe because it really kind of defines it. Yep. And then in Y case, I'm like, it'd be nice, but you could use like parsley in case. And so I'm trying to kind of walk you through somebody else's dish. Yep. And the other thing that it's extremely important for me with all of my books, all 5 of the books, every single one of the recipes and every single one of the books is tested by you, not you, Virginia, but you meaning a normal human being. Yeah. I have multiple readers test the recipes before the book comes out because in my previous books with game, you can't just go out and buy another backstrap of a deer, right? Right. And with fish and seafood, you can't, you could go out and buy more spot prawns or buy more grouper, but it's expensive. And what would happen if you follow my recipe for, say, I don't know, X grouper? Grouper's pretty expensive. or like royal red shrimp.
Yeah.
And it was like, you're going to propose, right? Or it was like your grandma's 100th birthday or whatever. And the recipe failed. Like that's the worst thing in the world. Right. So that's why these recipes are super, super heavily tested.
No, I appreciate that, because I feel that way too, honestly, as a cookbook author. It's like, so not only is someone like taking the time to perhaps buy my book, right? There's that, but they've taken the time to buy the ingredients. They've taken their precious time to make the food. So I am with you. I feel super compelled to make sure that my recipes work. And I love your approach, getting lay people to test it. Yep. I think that makes a sense, because you have experience in restaurants. I have experience in restaurants. We've both been cooking professionally for decades. So there's things that we may do inadvertently that we inherently know to do that someone without decades of experience is not going to know to do. So I really do appreciate it. Yeah, you got a couple royal red shout outs here. So for those of you that aren't familiar, royal reds are a really deep sea shrimp that I think tastes a lot like lobster. Do you?
They do.
Yeah, they're super yummy.
I consider them the second best shrimp in North America. The spot prawn being the best.
Oh, spot prawn. I was like, wait, what? No, I love I don't know. I probably have had those. I'm going to say that I have, because I feel like I have, but I do order them from Alaska with my subscription. So those are delicious. So, well, I know that we had talked about you sharing some of your favorite fishing cooking tools. Can you do that for us? Can you share some with us?
So number one, I think, let's see if we can show it, there we go, is a fish spatula. And this one's left-handed. They come in-handed. And what's cool about these things is that they're flexy, and they have a little blade on the end of it. It's not a very sharp blade, but it's a cutting thing, so that this is what you need to remove fish off a grill or remove fish off a steel pan or a cast iron pan. They're worth their weight in gold. If you like shellfish, you're going to want a clam knife. I'm from Clam Nation, and Clam Nation, so we have clam knives. You guys down south have oyster knives, and that's all well and good. This is a pin bone.
Oh yeah. Look at you bringing the stuff.
And so this is to remove pin bones from your fillets. And most fish will have pin bones somewhere just above the floating ribs. And these take the pin bones out much easier. Finally, you can't do anything without the fillet knife.
Yeah.
And so you'll notice that this is pretty much an industrial fillet knife. It's a Dexter Russell. Kershaw makes really good ones too. And you want it to be bendy, like that. And you don't want it to be expensive. And, there's lots of people who will say, hey, buy my really beautiful fillet knife for $150. And it's pretty, but I'm sorry. I've cut 1,000 fish in 48 hours, and, I don't want pretty. I want something that cleans well. I want something that holds a blade, and I want something that sharpens easily. And usually those are the industrial knives. And sorry, knife guys, like the Kershaw and Dexter Russell are just better. Especially if you're doing a lot of things. The last piece is this. This is a fish scaler. And I love fish scalers only because they're like $2. And so I'm kind of a thrifty Scotsman. I don't like buying expensive things for no reason. But yes, you can use a butter knife. Yes, you could use a spoon. Yes, you can use a bottle cap nailed to a dowel. All of those work, but these fish scalers are super cheap, and they do a better job because of those little teeth on them. These little teeth on them right there.
Yep.
And they'll last several generations. It's just a piece of steel.
That is so cool. And that is like literally the must-haves, right? And I completely agree with you in knives. And I can be guilty of wanting expensive, sexy knife toys too, right? It's I think a curse, but there's a time and a place. And not only do you want something, I think, that's like super serviceable, right? There's always a chance of losing some knives, right? And
True.
And so you want to be able, if you got a pricey knife, You want to make sure that you're keeping up with it. So,
I mean, when I worked in restaurants, I used Messermeister,
yeah,
which is a good, solid German blade that it won't break the bank.
Right. No, it's true. It's true. It's sort of, I do get a bit incredulous about some of the prices. And it's not that I'm discounting the fact that it's worth it or that the time is put in or the quality or the artisanship or all of that. But, you know, for a line cook to have a $700 knife, it's like
a week's pay.
That's a lot of, that's rent, right? Okay. So we got a question for you. Lynn, who is a chef and a great culinary professional in North Carolina, she's got some North Carolina mountain trout around her, I'm sure, or nearby. So her question is the favorite way to cook fresh trout. But I'm also going to ask you to just touch on what I read last night about eating freshwater and the parasites, because I thought that was really cool what you said. So will you tell us a little bit about the freshwater parasites and if people are catching fish at the lake this summer, and then what's your favorite way to prepare trout?
So number one, trout ceviche and trout sushi is off the menu. Okay.
Boom.
Like, it's not that you can't do it, but you have to blast freeze it first. I mean, if you have a chest freezer at your house, freeze it for 2, 3, 4 days before you make any raw preparation with any freshwater fish.
That's so cool.
The single largest vector for tapeworm, and this, I'm talking about tapeworms that can mature in you. Yeah. We call them weight loss buddies. Are freshwater fish that are raw or undercooked. And it happened. Like, I read the details, and it's gruesome. So yes, cook your freshwater fish, or suffer the consequences. So that's that. You
know, and I have to say, it's like, we don't think about things like that, right? I mean,
I do.
But a lot of people don't. Like, a lot of people don't, or they think that, oh, I have a stomach bug. No, darling, you don't have a stomach bug. You have a parasite, or you have a foodborne illness. This is not a cold. This is not a virus. I
got the Rona. Nope, you got a 4-foot tapeworm. No,
you got a creepy crawly. That's what's happening. Yeah, weight loss buddies. We've already got someone loving that.
So trout. Since she's talking about mountain trout, that's different. So I mean, there's trout coming all different shapes and sizes. From I caught 15-pound trout before. So, what I think she's talking about are like the little brookies and little mountain trout, and so those, because typically they will fit in a frying pan, I will scale them with either the fish scaler, or sometimes they won't even scale a little trout because their scales are pretty innocuous. Yeah. I just gill them, and I mean, I'll be honest. Like, if you're catching them up in the mountains, there's very little better than to make some breakfast in the morning, eat that breakfast, go trout fishing, catch some trout, and keep the bacon fat in the frying pan. And reheat the bacon in the frying pan and cook those trout on that. And then bring yourself a lemon. And that's kind of all you need. Yeah, man. When you got it like that, and so fresh, and the mountain air and all those kind of things. So, okay, let's just pretend we're not at the campground. Okay. And you went to your market, and because trout, I feel like, is a good, for people that don't like fishy fish. I always try to recommend trout, because I feel like it's not, there's a lot of trout farms, for example, in North Georgia. So I feel like that trout is a good transition fish. Like, people can get around salmon because it's ubiquitous. Trout, and salmon is strongly flavored.
Right. But people, for some reason, but anything else other than salmon, they're scared of it because they don't ever see it. Right. So sometimes I'll suggest trout. Like, if you're not, so what is it, like, if you're going to go to the market and get trout, what might be one of your ways to sort of fix it that way?
So it's actually kind of a conundrum with trout, because like you said, most trout are rainbows. Most trout are farmed, and most trout, like I would say no, actually, to buy one of those little whole trouts in the market, because they're tending to not be in the best quality. Now, that said, if you live in a place that has a really good fish market that gets good trout, let's assume that. Yeah, let's go there. Let's be positive. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you're in, like, a small town and you've got like some sad looking farm trout, then I'd be like, yeah. Let's say it's a good market and it's a super fresh trout. I like them grilled. I really love them grilled whole. And you want to keep the head on if you can stand it. Yep. Because taking the head off a fish, if you cook it, opens up. It's the same thing as taking the head off a shrimp, which is like if you live in Shrimp Nation, which is the entire southern coastal regions.
Got two coasts.
You know that head-on shrimp are better because they stay more juicy and they stay more moist. The same thing is true with fish, because when you take the head off, it opens the thickest, biggest part of that fillet on both sides of the spine to hot, dry, fierce temperatures, and it dries that part out. So I always try to have, it, a whole fish. And I think they look good, but some people get a little
yeah, some people get freaked out. I know. I always wonder about that. But no, and I'm with you on grilled, because also the skin protects it. And it's easy, it doesn't stick. That's another thing. Like people lose their minds over grilling fish because the grills aren't usually hot enough. And then they put the fish fillet on there and it just steams to be shut. All right, we've got a question. What's the best whole fish to use on an individual plate presentation, fried or grilled? Oh, I don't know. You got both of them there.
I mean, I don't think it is a question of cooking method. If you're asking about what's the best fish to do a whole fish presentation, it's always going to be some sort of bass-like fish. Okay. So it could be a crappie, it could be a smallmouth, it could be a ditch pickle, which is what I call largemouth bass.
Ditch pickle, oh my God, I love that term.
It could be a black sea bass. It could be a vermilion snapper or some other small snapper. A porgy. Porgy's really good.
Oh, man, porgy's
which in the Gulf they call white snapper, which is just a porgy, guys. In the West, I would say a rockfish. So something that looks bass-like, because it looks good. You can fry it, you can grill it, and you can often catch them that are exactly the size of the plate.
No, that's so nice. Oh my gosh. I can't even believe we're almost out of time. That's crazy, because I just could talk about fishing with you. So let's get the nuts and the bolts out of the way again. Sure. So first of all, y'all, if you're coming in late or you haven't seen this yet, Hook, Line, and Supper, please go to my Instagram feed, like me, like Hunt, Gather, Cook, and then you're going to enter to win a copy. All right, so I've got 5 questions for you.
Okay.
That I ask folks, and one of the first questions is, what is one of the last cookbooks that you have cooked from or read other than your own? Like what is someone that you go to when you're looking up stuff?
Oh God, there's a lot of them. I'll be honest, like it's a set of cookbooks that I kind of been living with for years now, and I'm looking at them right now. They're in Spanish, and they were put out by the Mexican government as an anthropological exercise. And there's one for every state in Mexico. So there's 32. And I have been going through those books for a couple of years now. Because I can read books in Spanish, and those books have been amazing insights into real deal Mexican food.
That's so cool, man. And good for you for being able to read it in the native language. That's fantastic, because you just have what's first. And I love that that's a deep dive.
It is a deep dive.
That's a deep dive. That's an explanation. Okay. So you've shown us the 5 or so tools that are your indispensable tools for fish cookery. What is your number one? Like if desert island, you've got one thing. What are you taking on that desert island?
I mean, a pan.
There you go.
Yeah. I mean, a kind of a high-sided pan, and because a high-sided pan, and like if you're putting me on a desert island, yes, a high-sided pan, because if I can only have the one, I can sear in it, I can fry in it, and then if it's got high size, I can make a quick stew in it.
Perfect. There you go. And you know what? I have to tell you, seems like the most silly question, and not one answer has duplicated.
Oh, wow.
You're the first person that said pan. So that's always fun for me. All right. All right. You have, new techniques, master recipes for everything caught in lakes, rivers, stream, and at the sea. Like you've got it covered. If it's in water, then you're covering it. Lot of big flavors, a lot of bold flavors. Sour, salty, bitter, sweet, or savory, umami. What's your go-to?
Spicy.
Yeah. That's not one of them.
Un día sin chile es como un día sin sol, which is to say, it's a Mexican expression for a day without chilies is like a day without sunshine.
All right. Well, I guess what would you think that would go with? Like of those, like we'll go with spicy. We'll give We'll give this 6 flavors. All right. So I think that's fantastic that you have this like deep dive with the Mexican cookbook collection and produced by the government. That's so amazing. What is someone, who do you look to online, right? Because we so much often we consume content online. So like I always use Jacques Pepin as an example. There's not a time that I cannot watch that chef that I do not learn something, anything. I've been in food television for 30 years, but anyway, so who is someone that you look at either on Instagram, IGTV, or YouTube or whatever? Who is someone that you like to watch that inspires you?
I think right now, I mean, just kind of stick with the theme, a chef named Enrique Olvera, and he runs a restaurant called Pujol in Mexico City, and which is considered, at one point, it was the greatest restaurant in this hemisphere. So from Canada to Tierra del Fuego. And he has kind of created or really elevated Mexican food that we all know, and has kind of made it white linen, and and I think that cuisine needs to be taken, people need to take it more seriously, and people need to take it, understand that it's not cheap food. It can be highfalutin food too.
Right. No, I would agree with that. I think a lot of folks have this perception that it's like all tacos, and it's not. Just like all American food isn't hamburgers or whatever.
Right. Tacos are great. Hamburgers are great, but there's more to it.
Yeah. There's more to that. All right. So, I love in the beginning that you talk about like fishing with your family when you were a kid. So will you just share, like as we wrap up, will you just share one of those sort of early memories that you shared in the book and Hook, Line, and Sinker about like what it was like fishing as a kid?
I think, a lot of it is to go back to the party boats where my mom and my stepfather, Frank, whom I dedicated the book to, we would be on a party boat down the shore in like Point Pleasant or Manasquan or somewhere, in the Jersey coast. And we would fish for flounder or fluke, which is the summer flounder. And mom would show me that you got to put your finger underneath the lines so that you could feel the slightest bite. And just, all of my early fishing instruction, both for digging clams and catching bluefish and fluke, was all mom and Frank. And it was always, there were good moments, my childhood wasn't like especially difficult, but it wasn't that easy either. And these were good, moments that really stuck with me a long time.
That's so beautiful. And I am in complete agreement. Some of my favorite memories from my childhood were fishing with my family. And it is still to this day, one of my favorite things to do. So Hank, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so grateful. I've long been an admirer of your work, and I love your new book, Hook, Line, and Supper. So if people want to get your book, where can they go find it?
Wherever fine books are sold. So, it's true. So you can get it on Amazon if you need it very fast. You can get it off my website, which is huntgathercook.com. And that helps me out a little bit more. I can't match them for speed, but you're helping a guy out. You can also get it at your local bookstore. They can order it. So wherever it is that you like to get books, you can get this book.
No, that's cool. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much. And y'all, he's got a book. You've got a book tour plan. So you make sure to go to huntgathercook.com, sign up for his information. I know that you're talking about being in the Atlanta area and the Southeast.
Florida too.
Again, Florida, Charleston, you name it. So thank you so much for being a guest on Cookbooks with Virginia today. I'm so grateful.
Thank you for having me on.
Oh yeah, my pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you. All right. So let's see what's going on here. All right, y'all. Thank you so much. I'm so glad we had a little bit of a hiatus for a couple of weeks. So I think I'm back in business, and I've got lots of great guests lined up. Nancy McDermott is going to be on with her fruit book. Dory Greenspan is going to be a guest. Erin McDowell is going to be a guest. Lots and lots and lots of great guests lined up for this fall. Please go to my Instagram feed and look for the cover of Hook, Line, and Supper so that you can win a copy. You can tell that I'm at home visiting my mama. So it's good to see mama. And then the last thing I want to say is it just so happens that this week I got one of my boxes, a subscription to Wild Alaskan Company. So I have a subscription with them, and I offer a $25 promo code if you use the word Virginia. So if you go to virginiawillis.com and check it out, you can learn more about it. And watch the videos and all that kind of stuff. So thank you so much for watching. Y'all be good, be safe, and bon appetit, y'all. All right. Bye-bye now.